Well. You can see our jokester for today is BJ. And she has some good jokes here still, so I wanted to use them while it's fresh on our mind. And the first one I think I'll say is, you think you know stress? When I grew up, if you missed a TV show, you just missed it forever. That's true. Now, that one might take some of you thinking about, I guess. I thought it was pretty good.
Very good.
On the surface, cool as a cucumber. On the inside, squirrel in traffic. That describes a lot of people.
Yeah.
People will stop asking you questions if you answer back in interpretive dance. Now, that would be interesting. I'm so glad I was young and stupid before there were camera phones.
Yeah.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
All right. They use that against you nowadays sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, today's talk is Batter Up, and I bet you all will figure out why that is the title. But the crux of the talk today is not necessarily about the World Series, which Texas won. Yay, for the first time ever. Never forget that you are a divine child of God. Sometimes we do forget. I've noticed, I wanted to bring this up because this is something that I've noticed kind of recently, and I should have noticed it before, but all my years in Unity, everybody in Unity, or any church probably, but everybody in Unity always wonders why somebody doesn't come back to church, why somebody was here for a long time, then they left, and all this and all that, whatever the reasons are. We kind of wonder that sometimes. And of course, why people don't come. But anyway, I'm addressing right here with this is why people don't come back. And there's something I've noticed this week that is true, the last couple of weeks, and that is that many people talk about and post on their online and everything about God being in nature. In fact, I've talked about God in nature, and God is in nature, right? I think we'll all agree with that. God is in nature. And you can see God through nature. But there's a big difference between recognizing God in nature and thinking that is all of God. And I think sometimes when people leave Unity, well, I know that sometimes when people leave Unity, that they think, well, I see God in nature. Now I know that I can see God everywhere outside of me. And so God's really outside of me. I don't need to really have to attend church, which you don't have to attend. You don't have to do anything. But attending church helps develop that. And what we seem to forget when we think about God being out there, we separate ourselves from God. Because whatever feeling you're getting from knowing that God is in nature, God is out there, whatever it stirs inside of you, what is it doing? It's stirring something inside of you, not necessarily that thing out there. That thing's going to be out there. It's always out there. It's always going to be there. But that stirs something in you. And you are the one that has God in you also. And you are the most important part of God in your life. You should be. Because you are the one that has to do what you're sent here to do. And if you're looking outside for God, it's okay to see God everywhere. It's good, in fact, to see God everywhere. But when you think that that's all you have to do, then we're stopping and getting stuck again. I saw yesterday, I was telling Francie, online, there was some article about, and it was very interesting. It's the first time that anybody, or I've ever seen it pointed out directly to me. It was something like 7 ideas that will prevent you from being saved or going to heaven or whatever it said. It said something like that. And 6 of the 7 were exactly what we teach here. And it was interesting because like the first one that I remember right off was, if you think that being loyal to God is going to make you prosperous, will give you things. Well, you can throw everything out of context, but when we talk about that, it's not about the things. It's about your spiritual growth and understanding that you can have those things without being a sinner. So it's not about things outside of you. It's about what's inside of you. And so what do we have to do? We have to claim our divinity all the time, or we'll lose it. And a lot of people, and I don't know why I recognize that that happening as far as people that leave the church, the church in general, really, I would say. We have to recognize that God inside of us has to be developed. Can it be developed on an individual basis as far as by myself? Yes. Is it as easy? No. And it's not going to happen most of the time with most people. You have to be getting together. Reverend Francie and I are required to do so many CEUs, which is continuing education units, every year. We are ministers. We went to school, have our master's degrees in divinity, but that doesn't mean that we can stop there and that's it, that we know it all. Everything is like the daily word today. Everything is in transition. Everything is happening all the time. We live in a dynamic world. We live in a dynamic universe. Our life is dynamic. It's always changing. And so when we recognize that, then we recognize that we can always grow, no matter what level we're at or we think we're at. So claim your divinity or you lose it. It's like anything. I mean, how many people... I used to be pretty fluent in Spanish. I don't use it hardly anymore, and so I don't remember that much of it. I mean, I can remember some of it, but I don't remember near as much as I used to. I remember when I was being raised in Texas, in San Antonio, I had the instructor, Mr. Sanchez. And Mr. Sanchez, that was his native tongue, it's Spanish. And he was a cool guy. He's kind of a short, overweight guy, but he was a really cool guy. And I learned a lot from him. But if he came to me right now and started talking Spanish to me, he'd probably be pretty disappointed that I don't know near as much as I knew when I was talking to him. But that's what happens. When we don't use it, we lose it, don't we? Yeah. It's not that it's really totally lost anyway. It's just that we aren't fluent in it anymore. Texas Rangers are the 2023 world champions. First time ever in their history. I know that a lot of people don't really care about this, but Texas was the Washington Senators in 1962, started as the Washington Senators in 62, moved to Texas in 72, and became the Texas Rangers. And they have been essentially perennial losers since. And, of course, that's my team because I grew up there. My brother worked at the stadium, and I was just thinking the other day how I don't remember how my parents let me go to one game by myself. Mark, my brother, was working, and I don't remember, probably because they knew that there was nobody there anyway, because that was in the days when hardly anybody went to the ball games because they were so bad. But Mark used to sell these things, and they called them pink things. I don't think they sell them anymore, but they were just a little pink popsicle stuff. You might remember these, though. They paper wrapper, and you pulled down the wrapper and you licked on them. I didn't really like them, but
push-up.
Yeah, push-ups. That's what they call it sometimes. Yeah.
Hey, Warren, move your mic down just a little bit because it's hitting the corner of your shirt.
Okay. Well, anyway, it was fun, and it was
just a little.
An interesting time. But why I brought that up also is not only that I want to brag about them a little bit, but is how they have changed over the years. This is the first time in modern history, there was in 1900 whatever, but in modern history that not only the Texas Rangers, both teams actually, had lost more than 100 games 2 years ago. And this year, they both won over 100 games. I don't know. They both made it to the World Series. And Texas won. But this is a totally different atmosphere. Texas has had a lot of good teams, had a lot of, the Rangers have been good in different ways, but they've always been short on pitching, which is the defensive part of the game, mainly. But anyway, I would say that the best benefit they had this year was this guy right here. And I think, if I remember right, he's 78 years old. He's their new manager this year. It's Bruce Bochy. And why I give him that much credit is he's already won the World Series with other teams. He knows what he's doing, and all he did was change the atmosphere. He changed the thinking of how they were doing. And at the end of the year, the Texas Rangers were ahead of their division the whole year. At the end of the year, they fell apart, and they didn't even win their division because they lost so many games at the end of the year. So nobody really thought that they were going to do much in the playoffs, but they ended up winning it all. So it's a change of attitude, change of things, because last year's team is almost the same as this year's team, and last year they lost a lot more games than they won. But in baseball, .333 batter is a great hitter. And think of this, that's only hitting 1 out of every 3 at-bats. So that's making it on base 1 out of every 3 times. And so if we think about that in life, that we're a great hitter in baseball, if we do only 1 out of 3, that's pretty good odds for us in life, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, if we only have to do one thing right, we fail twice and get it right once, we got a pretty good chance of being good, don't we?
Yeah, that's good.
And so I don't know why we think that sometimes, I know personally I do I've gotten better about this, but when you don't succeed at something, you think you're no good at it. Well, you failed maybe once. And who's to know about succeeding if that's the first time you tried it, That doesn't mean that you're going to fail every time you try it, but that just means that you didn't make it this time to what your goal was. And so you need to be resilient. Fully showing up is a big part of success in claiming our divinity. And just like at a job, that we may or may not enjoy, we, in our history, if we show up, we still get paid because we do our job. But if we don't show up, we're not going to get paid, are we? So you have to show up, and that's part of it. And if you show up, then you have the opportunity to become better at whatever you're talking about. So if you don't ever go back to the baseball comparison, if you don't ever get up to the plate, you're never going to have a hit, right? And so you have to be willing to go up to the plate. And you can. But if you don't get up there and show up, then you're not going to ever be able to do it. And it's kind of like on divinity, it's part of like showing up to increase your knowledge, your awareness, your spirituality by coming to places that are teaching more of it. And we hope that you're getting that here on Sundays. On Matthew 9:21, everybody remembers this story when the woman that was bleeding for months and months said to herself, if only I touch the cloak of his garment, I will be healed. And so she does, and what does Jesus say to her? Jesus says, Jesus felt it, first of all, just touched the cloak, didn't touch him, and he was on it, let me kind of set it up for you. He was on his way to heal somebody else. He wasn't even knowing about her. But she came up and did that, touched his cloak, and he felt it. Why did he feel it when he touched his cloak? She didn't pull on it or anything. It wasn't a physical reason that he felt it, but he felt it physically, and he felt it spiritually. Because he was so divine at the time and amped up, prayed up, that he could feel the things around him. And when she did that and didn't drain it, but pulled some of his energy from him, he turned around and said, your faith has healed you. Because he didn't have to heal her. He knew that. In fact, he knew that he couldn't heal anybody. But if someone thinks that they can be healed by being in nature, being around something, then what's going to happen? They're going to be healed. But that's not what healed them. The thing didn't heal them. They healed themselves. Do you follow?
Yes.
So it's interesting. This all ties in together with that. And so if you understand that nature and other things can really, like baseball, then winning the World Series can really amp you up, can make you understand things and understand where that amp up is coming from. It's coming from you, not from the outside. The outside stimulus is important, but it isn't what happens inside of you. Letting your light, your divinity shine is honoring God in you and God in all. So when we do that, the only reason that the nature or whatever ignites something in you is because that we haven't ignited it in ourselves. And so God being everything and everything tied together, it is something that we can understand a little bit better maybe if we understand that if God is in everything, then at any time I can be ignited with the Holy Spirit. I can be ignited with God. And that is up to us when we decide we want to do that. Church can enliven you, can enliven the God within you, the Christ within you. And hopefully that's why people come. And some people, I've heard even people say, well, church just doesn't do it for me anymore. And that's fine. But and I mean, that's fine for you to say that, because you may feel that way at that moment. But if it isn't enlivening you, then find out why it isn't. What is it that isn't enlivening you? I've already kind of tried to explain how it's within you that is the life, and you are the one that is going to get enlivened by your own thoughts, your own faith. But when too many people, in my opinion, go to whatever and listen or watch something expecting a certain thing, and when they don't get it, they don't get what they're looking for. Yet, if we understand that is within us what we're looking for, and we're going to listen and hear something good that is going to enliven us, then we will be enlivened no matter what we hear. Do you follow?
Yes.
Okay. Francie kind of laughs at me sometimes when I talk about the times I went to a Catholic church and got communion and things when I wasn't supposed to. So I found out later I wasn't supposed to. But, I was enlivened at a Catholic church. And the reason is a lot of reasons. One of the reasons was because, the surroundings. I love the ornateness of the Catholic Church. They have a lot of cool things. Anyway.
They have a lot of gross things, too.
No, Francie says they have a lot of gross things, too, but that's a different experience.
Mm-hmm.
So you can look at that and say, that you don't like. Hey, even when I was in high school, when I was kind of doing different things and not really into church at the time, I was boxing and all sorts of things. But anyway, this one minister took me under his wing, and he was real cool, and he was of the apostolic faith. And if you know the apostolic faith, it's pretty. I don't know how you say it. It's
intense.
Yeah, intense is a good. Who said that? That's good. Intense. And it was good for me at the time, though. It was very good for me at the time. And he was a good man, and still is a good man. Hopefully, I haven't heard from him forever. But anyway, so you have to think about what you're getting, what you're putting in your body. What you're accepting is what you're thinking that you're going to get. So how are you looking at things? How are you receiving things? What is it you're looking for from the experience that you're having with an individual or anything in life? Well, we all have to persevere, and metaphysically, to persist in pursuit of truth is what perseverance means. Through perseverance, we make connection with the higher realms of consciousness, Charles Fillmore said in The Revealing Word. And so, we have to understand that every time that I've gone to a Unity church and listened to the speaker, I'm not saying that I've been enlivened, but it was because when I wasn't, it was because of me not being open to enlightenment that morning or whenever it was. You follow me?
Yes.
So we have to understand that, and I think that's, again, I've said many times that is one of Unity's downfalls, if you will, is that there's so much responsibility on the individual and the individual growing spiritually when we talk in Unity, is that turns a lot of people off. You can go to other Catholic or other Christian churches, and once you get saved, boy, you're on the train. You're cool. You can do pretty much anything you want. You might have to be resaved, but whatever. It's an easy deal, right? All I have to do is go down to the altar at the end. I don't have to listen to the service. I just have to go down to the altar at the end, kneel down, bow my head, get some water, something, whatever, sprinkled on me, touched, whatever, and I'm okay, right? And I'm not saying that that's a bad deal. I'm not really criticizing. You may hear that. In fact, most people that go to those probably would hear that as a criticism. It's really not. What it is, though, is me saying that when you're not in it, understanding that it comes from within you, then you're missing out. You're really missing out. And once you find out that it is coming from within you, that adds all the responsibility, on you. I think it's interesting, too, that as far as, when Unity, sometimes the ministers will get into discussion and have the discussion, which I've told you before, about some ministers nowadays don't want Unity to be tied necessarily or say that we're Christian when that's just our history, and that doesn't bother me at all, and I think we are Christian. But Christianity itself, if you look at it, the person that is based on Jesus was what? He was a Jewish person. He never denounced his Judaism. And so if he was a Jewish person, who is he here really to save? I don't think Jesus was here to save necessarily everybody else, but he recognized the Gentiles in his time, but he recognized that God is available to everyone. And he had to say that to save all his Jewish faith, if you will, because the Jewish faith, especially at that time, and even today, is based on a hierarchy scale. There are only priests that can go into the temple. There are only certain things that can be done by a certain caste of individual, which means that if you're born, a Gentile, you're for sure not going to be. I mean, you can transfer to Judaism, but anyway, it's not the same. It's kind of like, and Catholic has that a little bit too. If you weren't born Catholic, well, you're kind of out of luck. You can become a Catholic, but you're really kind of the stepchild, okay? But Jesus knew that wasn't the case. And so there's when people talk about Christianity, it's and saying that it's the final word. I think it's interesting because Jesus never was a Christian, and he was saying to the Jews that it isn't the final word. The Judaism faith isn't the final word. So always we're growing. We're in this transition phase of moving through life and understanding. But a way to get to that is we have to persevere, don't we? We have to continue down the road. And it's hard. I'll admit that it's hard sometimes when people are going down the road, down their spiritual path, and they're growing real fast, and then all of a sudden they stop growing as fast as they were. I know it's hard to understand why that would happen. But it doesn't mean you stop. If you stop, then you stop, and it's on you. If you keep going, then you'll break through. Circumstances on the outside can wake up your inside, which I was saying earlier about the nature and all that stuff. They can wake you up on the inside. And something that most of the people that leave Unity, and well, I'd say I haven't done any real statistical stuff on it, but I'd say over 90% of the people that actually leave Unity don't go to another church. They just think that they've got it outside of Unity. That they don't need to go to church anymore, which is not accurate. But that's what happens to most people, I think. Now, you can't say that about other churches. Especially in Christianity. Christianity, if you, and I'm not talking about the Catholic Church, but I'm talking about all the Protestant churches. If you leave a Protestant church, you can go to another Protestant church without any thinking about it, really. There are differences, but anyway, there's not as extreme differences. And for Unity, that's not the case. Even though we are based on Jesus' teachings, when people leave Unity, they usually think, well, I've got it now. I'll be all right, which is not the case. You've got a lot of it, but you haven't got it all. Neither do I. So circumstances on the outside can wake us up to our inside. Recognizing what is in you that is of God and how to expand that awareness is the key. If we recognize that all that stuff is coming from within us, being awakened, however, whether we're in prayer by ourselves or we recognize it from nature or from something else, if we know that it's coming from within us, then we know that God is within us and it's available at any time, and that it's up to us to wake it up. And so we can do that. The RBI in baseball stands for runs batted in. And this is another thing about batting, and I just went dead for some reason. And this is another thing about batting in baseball. Runs batted in. I'll see you.
Thank you.
Where's Mark's?
I wouldn't take it. You probably took it back there.
Okay, let's see if this stays on. It's green. I don't know why it's going on. Anyway, runs batted in is something in baseball, and it's like if you have somebody on the bases, when you come up to bat and you hit them in, you can get runs batted in that way. Or if you hit a home run, you're going to have your own run batted in. And it's interesting because it's something that obviously it's a score. So you keep score, and you score by batting runs in. and this is funny, I don't think Francie even knew this, but maybe she did. RBIs, runs batted in, at-bats is AB, runs, and hits. And so, on defense, I was telling you earlier about the pitching that has been not the best for Texas over the years, but like on the final game of the World Series, our starting pitcher did not do near as good as their starting pitcher. He had 6 no-hit innings, and we had something like 6 or 7 hits in those first 6 innings. But he scattered them so they didn't get any runs divided in. And so it was 0-0 after 6. And no matter whether you had the better pitcher or not, in that circumstance, see, they were still tied. There was still the same score. So if you persevere, sometimes you don't recognize at the time maybe that you're doing okay, but you are. And that's what I need to tell to the people who leave Unity. Is you may not recognize it. Other people may recognize your growth without you recognizing it. But you may not recognize it, and you think that you need to change, but you don't. You need to keep going, keep persevering. And you'll get the runs batted in. But you are the cleanup hitter in your lineup of life, in God's lineup of life, really. And the cleanup hitter is the most important hitter. Well, I would say that there's a lot of important hitters, but those first 4 are the best hitters in the game in your lineup. And it comes off, the leadoff hitter needs to get on base. The second hitter needs to hit him in or hit him around. And the third hitter is important because he's probably got a lot of power. But the fourth hitter, which is the cleanup hitter, which I'm talking about here, is the strongest, is the best hitter usually. He's the one that usually, not all the time, can hit home runs very easily. In Texas's World Series run, after 3 games, our best hitter, he was doing great through the playoffs, hit a record number of home runs before he got hurt in that 4th game of the World Series. And he was out for the rest of the series. And so was one of our starting pitchers. He got hurt too. And so your 2 key players, when that happened, I even told Bill, and when he was here, he's a big baseball fan too. I told Bill, boy, that's going to make it hard on the Rangers now because they lost they only had really 3 great pitchers, and one of them went down, and then our best hitter by far, who won a lot of the games for us, had gone down. He hurt himself. So, we were without them. And so it kind of tells you, I'm doubting them, and but the more important thing is
it's your pack.
That they didn't doubt themselves. Yeah. So that was the most important thing, is they did not doubt themselves, and so that's how they ended up winning. So, in sports, there's this saying that is kind of overused sometimes, but it's really a true saying, is next man up. And what that means is that you always need to prepare, because whenever somebody gets hurt, you're going to be the next person up. You always need to prepare and be ready to go in. So you are the cleanup hitter, whether you know it or not, in your life. In fact, I don't know if you don't like baseball, you probably haven't seen it. I don't know if you've seen this advertisement. It's so funny. It looks like a little, a softball league or something, but it's hardball, looks like. And they're on the bench at this one side, and the coach says, "Derek, get in." Has anybody seen it? And this little scrawny guy gets up, and he's kind of like, "You calling on me, coach?" And then he says, "No, I mean Derek Jeter." And Derek Jeter was at the end of the bench, and Derek Jeter is a famous baseball player that was a great baseball player. Anyway, it was funny to see it. In fact, this doesn't relate to that, but Francie needs to see this. And I don't know how many, if you didn't watch the series, then you probably didn't see it because it was on during the baseball series. But John Travolta has a new commercial out. I don't know, has anybody seen it? Where he's dressed up like Santa Claus. You have to see it. You'll have to see it. It is fun. Anyway. All right. Oops. Okay. So what we need to do is grab the ball and play, don't we? We don't need to worry about where we're at or what we're doing, but we need to just get in there and have a good time. So God is with you all the time. Amen. All right. This song is a little different, but the words went along with the talk. So I wanted to play it for you, and I need to go back there and lower the volume.